Hello, I'm Chuck Wolf, Chief Executive for Charles J. Wolf Associates, LLC. As a motivational speaker and a leadership consultant and executive coach and trainer, I often work with very successful people in their companies. Since many can't afford a professional, I volunteer to host a radio talk show called The Emotion Roadmap, Take the Wheel and Control How You Feel, on a nonprofit community radio station in Bridgeport, Connecticut, WPKN. My reason for doing the show is to share with as many people as possible this wonderful process for helping people manage their own emotions and their relationships with others. My goal is for everyone listening to learn to use the Emotion Roadmap to make life better. As you listen to me, help others, I hope you are also learning. As a Simsbury resident, I'm delighted to be able to make the show available through Simsbury TV. To learn more, go to my website, www.emotionroadmap.com. Thank you for listening and watching. And this is Chuck Wolf, and this is the Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. If you are a regular listener and you're tuning in and you're spending some of this beautiful day listening to me someplace, I want to say thank you for tuning in. And if you're brand new, a little bit about the show is about calling in as part of our community strip here at WPKN. The show's about helping people deal with all kinds of challenges. Any challenge you face often has emotions as part of that challenge. And when smart people are stuck, I find that they're often stuck because something emotional is happening, either to them or to someone that they're dealing with. And when that happens, by focusing on the emotions that are in play, either inside of you or inside of someone that you're dealing with that's important to whatever it is you're trying to get done or achieve, I find that you can create options almost as if by magic. New options appear that give you an idea and a plan going forward that takes you from being uncertain and doubtful and confused to feeling hopeful and confident that you've got an idea or a strategy that might be helpful for the situation that you're facing. So if your situations has to do with conflict at work or at home, or perhaps something to do in your community, in your neighborhood, something to do with an organization you belong to or some religious group, whatever it might be where you're having some situation that challenges you, that causes you to feel uncertain, doubtful, upset perhaps, or confused, I think it's possible to call in and share what's going on for you, and in turn, I will use the Emotion Roadmap to figure out how to make this work. And I think our phones are working fine today. I did check them. And if you want to call in, let me give you the number right away. The number is 203-336-9756. So if you've been waiting for me to come back, I'm on twice a month, on the first and second Wednesdays of each month from 12 to 1 p.m., again, as part of WPKN's Community Strip. And the number to call is 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. So if there's a situation with a boss, with a coworker, with someone who works for you, if there's a situation at home with a parent, with a spouse, with a partner, with a child, if there's anything going on in your home or your work life or in your community and you want some help with it, the beauty of the show is that when you get helped, and I show you how my Emotion Roadmap works, and I'll explain that in a moment. When I use the Emotion Roadmap to help guide you, everyone who listens is learning about the Emotion Roadmap and how to use it in his or her own life. And so the reason for volunteering and doing this show now for 7 years is because people get some experience and knowledge that otherwise wouldn't be available to them. So again, the number to call is 203-336-9756. Now, I always take some time ahead of time and prepare several topics to talk about, because you never know in a talk show who's going to call, when they're going to call. It's kind of interesting. When the first person calls, it seems easier for other people to call. And I know at times it's challenging to put your voice on the radio if you've never called before. And also, it's not easy to share an issue where you might be stuck on something, where you might be upset about something and feel as though, why would I do this on the radio? Well, the reason for doing it are twofold. One is for yourself. You have the chance to get some professional help from an expert. My expertise is as a leadership coach, a former therapist, and someone who is an expert on emotional intelligence. And I want to be able to help you. It gives me great pleasure to help others. So when I can make a meaningful difference in your life, that's a reward for me for doing the show. Just as important is that everyone who's listening, who hears what your situation is, chances are you're not alone, and there's other people who have some kind of similar situations in their life. And even if it's not exactly the same as what you're experiencing, the idea, and this is how the emotion roadmap works, the idea of looking at the emotion roadmap and seeing how it can be helpful in your situation is also helpful to them. And so the idea of an emotion roadmap is simply like any roadmap. It helps you to go from one place where you are presently to a place that you want to be, a different place. So let's say you're in Bridgeport, Connecticut, where our show originates, and you want to get to Boston, Massachusetts. How might you do that? Would you travel along Route 95, the Southern Corridor? Would you drive your car? Would you take a bus? Would you take the train? Well, how would you do it? In any case, there's different ways that you might get from one place to another. And that's true about emotions as well. So the example I like to use is if you're anxious in a situation where you know you need to be confident, how do you get from feeling anxious to confident? How does that happen? What do you need to do to make that happen? And that's what we do on this show. We look at what you might be feeling, what we want you to feel, what you want to feel, what would be ideal for you to feel, and then we help you create that. Hopefully that's as clear as it needs to be for you to decide that, yes, I do want to call in because I've got something that's been bothering me for a while. I'm really unsure what to do about it. And if I could get some help with that, with this particular situation in my life, it'll be great for me and it'll be helpful to others as well. So that's the introduction to the show, folks. And I'm Chuck Wolf. And I'm here to help you and to help others learn how to use the emotion roadmap. Now, the topic I want to talk about today, which is an interesting topic for a number of reasons, is called engagement. Now, engagement has several different meanings. It could be the engagement of one person to another. But engagement I'm talking about today in the sense of engagement in organizational life. There's a group called Gallup. The Gallup organization is known for surveys and polls that they do across large and medium-sized companies all around the world. And typically in North America, once every year or two, they do a survey, a cultural audit that asks companies to share with their employees this survey to talk about how engaged each person in each company is. And they accumulate a lot of statistical data that results in several percentage groupings of people that they call actively engaged. And when I say actively engaged, what Gallup describes as actively engaged is someone that is doing everything they can for their organization. They feel like their organization is aligned with their values. Their organization is an organization they're proud to say they belong to. Their organization is a place where people care about each other, take care of each other, support one another. At least that's the way that person feels about it. The person that's actively engaged. The person that's somewhat or moderately engaged, but not very much engaged, is sort of just doing what they need to do to survive. You know, they don't do anything wrong. They don't do anything extra. They try just to get done what they're asked to do. They're not taking a lot of initiative. They're not interested in risk-taking. They're not necessarily trying to make their group or their company or their organization better. What they're trying to do, essentially, is survive. The next group is actively disengaged, a group of people that just really is so upset with their company, sometimes hateful towards their company, that they want to sabotage their company if they can get away with it. In any case, they may not be actually saboteurs and actually working to harm their company or bring their company down, but they're doing as little as possible. Now, you might wonder why I'm telling you that. Well, because by talking about engagement, I want to point out something that in our economy, in America right now, the business world, the stock averages are hitting all-time highs. So we are making lots of money. At the same time, we're hitting financial objectives in many companies. We're leaving money and productivity on the table. And you'll know that when I tell you the percentages of what Gallup finds in each company on average to be true about the three different groupings. Now, you might have some idea about those groupings. I talked about it a little bit last time I was on the show. But I'll just tell you about it, and then maybe we'll call in a little bit about it. But the idea of how many people are actively engaged in a company, really working hard to support their company, is somewhere around 20% across all companies. Now, certainly what that means as an average is that some companies are going to be higher than that, some lower than that, but mostly they cluster around 20% of the people in all companies across North America, which typically it means Canada and the United States. 20% are actively engaged. Now, the actively disengaged usually runs almost the same number, but not quite as high, somewhere around 17, 18%. 17 or 18%. That's like 2 people out of every 10 people are doing as little as they can in their companies, and some of those same people may be actively trying to sabotage their companies. And somewhere around 6 people in every company are doing just what's necessary. They're not doing anything necessarily wrong, but they're not taking any risk. They're not adding any innovative ideas. They just want to keep a low profile and do what they need to do so they can get a paycheck and enjoy their life outside of work. They don't feel any great loyalty to their organization. And so when you look at the percentages, you see somewhere around 2 out of every 10 people highly engaged, 2 actively disengaged, and 6 just kind of doing what they need to do. So think about this from a financial perspective. If you're a businessman, a leader of a company, and you've got 8 out of 10 employees, 8 out of every 10 employees. So if you've got 1,000 employees, that's 800 of them not doing what they could to highly support your organization. If you have 100,000 and 80,000 aren't doing what they could, wouldn't you say you're leaving money on the table? Wouldn't you say you're not as productive as you could be? You're not nearly as profitable as you might be? Because people aren't engaged to the level that you'd like to see them engaged. So my question for my audience today, those of you that are listening, and thanks again for listening, and you're listening to the Emotion Roadmap, Take the Wheel and Control How You Feel, and I'm Chuck Wolf, your host. And the number to call if you've got something on your mind that you'd like to talk about, whether it's about engagement in your company or it's something else you've been waiting to call in to talk to me about. I love having callers. It makes the show that much more interesting. So the number to call is 203-336-9756. I'll say it a few more times for you, and I'll give people a chance to call in case they want. 203-336-9756. Hi, this is Chuck. You're on the air. Can you hear me? No. Okay, hold on. Hi, this is Chuck. You're on the air. Can you hear me now?
Hi, I can. Chuck, how are you today?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. I had a question about engagement.
Sure. Before you go on, I just want to make sure you know that you're on the air, and I'd like to ask your first name so I can address you by it.
Of course, Irene.
Irene. Thanks, Irene. And what's your question about engagement?
How do you get people engaged?
Okay.
It's an 80-20 flush rate. When you look at anything, even right down to your closet, you wear 20% of your wardrobe 80% of the time. So if it's an 80-20 ratio that we're dealing with, how do you engage the 80? The 20 are already engaged in doing what they need to be doing. How does one engage the 80 while also raising the level of said 20 that are already in production properly?
Okay, so it's a great question, and one of the things that I'd like to see if I can help you to sort of answer at least part of it yourself, because I have a lot of information about this, because actually the way I make a living is I'm often do leadership consulting or leadership coaching, and I'm always talking about how do you get more from the people how do you get people that want to follow you even if you weren't paying them? How do you get people to want to volunteer just to be around you because they're excited about working for you? And there is a lot of information out there about that. But one thing I'd ask you, Irene, is in terms of yourself, it sounds like you've thought about this a little bit. Have you ever felt fully engaged? And if so, what were some things that helped to create that for you?
Well, I'm on the air, so I'm not supposed to say who I am or where I work. So,
well, if it's all good things, you could. But if it's not,
all good things, yes.
Sure, go ahead.
It is all good things. I am the productivity coach of a Keller Williams office on Long Island, actually.
Okay.
And so one of the ways that I do get people engaged is, frankly, paying. I'll do a raffle. And out of the attendees, someone's going to win something. But short of paying them to actually show up, I'm just wondering what are other ways to get people engaged because they're actually investing in themselves. And so how does one help someone invest in themselves if you can't get them to show up?
Okay. So one way of thinking about this is to think about if there's ever been a time where you've seen people show up without having to have a reward, a financial reward as part of that, when do people show up? What causes people to show up and be engaged? I think we had two really interesting examples in our last political, with the presidential primaries, where the people that supported both Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders. Interestingly enough, those two seem to have people fully engaged. All kinds of people showing up in places where it really took some work to get there, and very excited about being there. Well, what caused that? Well, I think that both Sanders and Trump, with different audiences, found a way to make a connection, an emotional connection. Of course, that's what the show's about. It's all about how do you make an emotional connection with an audience member, with someone that you're targeting, that you want to have as someone who follows you, who supports you. And if it's part of your organization, part of that is the things that you say, but more importantly, if it's something where it's an organization that's ongoing and it isn't just about making speeches, it's also not just what you say, it's what you do. So what are the things that people do that make people in organizations feel like, hey, I want to belong here. I really value being part of this company. And I'll give you a few things. I don't want to say too much because I'd like to see other people call in and have their own thoughts about that. But here's a couple. So one of the things that attracts people to an organization is an organization that really, I'll tell you about a leader that I've worked with that is wonderful at engaging others. His name is John Caparella. And I actually have on YouTube, if you want to look it up, if you look up my name on YouTube, you'll see an interview with John, several of them actually. John, at the time that I interviewed him, was the president of the Venetian and the Palazzo hotels. They have almost 12,000 people in those hotels working there. And then at the same time as president of the Sands Convention Center, all in Las Vegas. And I've known John for over 30 years, and he is one of the most brilliant people at engaging others who work for him. And he does it in this way. He says that humans, he doesn't call them human resources, team members he calls them. Team members are the most important reason we're successful. And I don't focus on customers. I don't focus on stockholders. I don't focus on anyone in the same way I focus on team members, because if I focus on team members, what they need to be successful, if I can help them be successful, if I can help them to grow, if I can enable them, if I can challenge them, if I can give them new experiences and make them feel that they're part of something special and that they're special, then my customers that they interact with are going to feel special. And my stockholders are going to benefit because we're going to be one of the premier institutions in this industry because of the way we treat people, the way we clean up after ourselves, the way we set standards and meet them or over exceed them, because I'm taking care of people, and people know and feel when you're being taken care of that you're going to take care of your organization. You're not going to go home till things are done. Not because somebody says to you, you need to stay. You're not going to go home because you don't want to leave until everything looks the way it needs to look for tomorrow morning's presentation. So your guest has that experience they're looking for, that they feel welcome, comfortable, and important when they walk in that door. And when they need something, you're available to get it for them in a heartbeat. So those are some ways that you create engagement. Does that answer your question a bit?
It does, and I just can't thank you enough for your time this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Irene, for calling. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Have a beautiful day.
You too. Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
So that's a little bit about engagement from Irene, a productivity coach, and someone who's really likes the company that she's with. Anybody else out there has got something that you think that you want to share? The number again is 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. Now, sometimes you want to think about, why are so many people disengaged? What's going on in organizational life that causes people to be disengaged? What are some of those things that are going on? Some of you may find it easier to talk a bit about that. I want to know more about that. Again, I'll give you a moment to call, and the number, I'll say it a few times, and I'll say it slow in case you want to call. And by the way, again, you're welcome to call about something else different than the topic, something that you want to just talk about because you're someone who's got something on your mind that you'd really like some help with. The number to call is 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. One more time, and then I'll start talking again. If you want me to, if you want to call in again, the number is 203-336-9756. Okay. So, what causes people to be disengaged? Now, these may be your experiences. These may be different than what you've experienced. But let me give you a few examples. How about the person that shows up every day, works really hard, does what they need to do, and then has a moment in time when something isn't right at home? Something's going on. Maybe they've got an aging parent who is, borderline dementia, Alzheimer's, struggling, or maybe just making that move to assisted living, and they're really going through some tough moments. And you notice, as their leader, that they don't seem to be working quite as hard as they were, but you don't know why yet. And then one day they come to you and they say, I'm going to need a little bit of time to help my aging parent because there's something going on, and I have a brother or I have a sister, but they're not doing much, and I really feel responsible, and my mom counts on me, and I'm going to be a little bit less focused over the next several weeks, maybe in months, I don't know, but I'm going to see if I can be helpful to my mom. And I just want to let you know that because I certainly care about what I'm doing here, but I just, don't have, I may even have to leave a little early on occasion, and I'm just hoping that's okay with you. And your response is, sure, that's fine. And just kind of let me know so I can plan accordingly if you have the chance to to plan for this. Let's see if we can work around it. That would be great. And I would be, if I was that employee, I'd feel very engaged. But what if instead you got, I'm sorry about what's going on outside, and we all have problems that we deal with. You're not alone having issues outside of work, but your job is to be here from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., and if you can't do that, you can't stay. Now, do you think that's terrible? Well, you might, and the person who's in charge might be perfectly within their right to say that to you, because it might be a job that needs somebody sitting at a phone, being able to answer in a call center or someplace else from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. It might actually be true what the person said. But do you come in as engaged the next day if that's what's told to you? Even if it's right. I'm not saying that the supervisor that might have said the second response was wrong, but it's wrong from an emotional perspective in terms of getting the value you need from this person. Because if you take the first approach and you find some ways to support this person, be flexible with them, to take care of them a bit, you know what happens in your organization? Everybody else that sees that, not everybody, I shouldn't say everybody, but most other people that see that think that this is an organization that cares about people. Look how they're taking care of Ted. Look how they're taking care of Marie. Look how they're taking care of Muhammad. Look at what they just did for the person that works hard. They've got his or her back. As opposed to, holy cow, that person, Marie, Ted, Ahmed, Muhammad, whatever, that person is the hardest worker in this unit, and they're not giving him or her any flexibility? Wow. Okay, I need this job, so I'm going to keep working here, but I'm not doing anything extra. That's for darn sure. If they want to play by those strict kind of rules, then I'm playing by them too. I'm not staying. Something isn't right. See you later. You take care of it. At 5 p.m., I'm out of here. I mean, can you see attitudinally how things change based on one simple incident that's happening all over our country? All the people I know that are in the age group 40 to 60 are dealing with aging parents in different stages of life that are facing circumstances where sometimes your adult children need to help you out. And those adult children typically have jobs that are somewhat demanding, if not very demanding. So which company do you know that is supportive and flexible enough to help out? Or how about this whole concept of people who work at home, this virtual job where you do your job and you work the same amount of hours in theory, but you do it from your home. You create sort of an office space in your home. You have computer connections. You have the opportunity to call in, to log in, depending on the size of your company and the type of systems that you have. Or maybe you're a graphics artist and a lot of what you do is independent and you can use a laptop either at work or at home. And you have a tough commute. Your commute, let's say, is, it's an hour and a half each way. And, you're using 3 hours a day just for travel time. You're putting wear and tear on a car, or maybe you're riding the train, but you're doing something that's using up 3 hours a day that you could be using at home, or just for your life, but also for work. Now, what about allowing people to work at home? Does that create engagement or disengagement? Kind of depends. Now, this is where it's really interesting, because one of the things that, like Irene asked me, what causes engagement? It's not the same for everybody. That's an important consideration, that engagement for one person may not be the same as engagement for another. So while some people might love the idea of working at home, other people find it really stressful to work at home, and in fact, much more enjoy the social aspect of coming to a place where there's a group of people that you see on a regular basis that you may not have more in common with than just simply that you work together, but there's someone to talk to about the last Game of Thrones episode you might have watched, or the football game you saw on Sunday, or something going on in politics, or something happening like the hurricanes or that just took place, or just someone else to talk to. That's engaging for people. So working at home, you kind of lose that. So an important consideration is that engagement for one person isn't necessarily the same as engagement for another person. And what's fascinating about the idea of how we deal with others is that we always start with, what would feel engaging for me? What would be fair for me? And that's a great place to start, because I think you don't want to do something to someone else that you wouldn't want done to you. But don't stop there. In other words, once you've thought about what would be engaging for you, ask yourself, is the person I'm thinking about that I need to engage more than he or she is engaged right now like me? If so, how are they like me? And are they different from me? And if so, how are they different? And are the differences we have important enough that what might engage me would not necessarily work for him or her? See, the emotion roadmap thinks about how do we cause people to feel a certain way. And if the goal is to take someone who's feeling disengaged and make them feel engaged, if we want to get from disengagement to engagement, and we understand that in order to do that, there are things that make people feel included, like they belong, like they're special, like we care about them, like we appreciate them, we respect them. Those are the kinds of emotions people need to experience to feel engaged. Because engaged is a combination of lots of things. It's respect, it's appreciation, it's value, it's support, it's enabling, it's empowering. Those are the kind of things that engage people. Now, how we do that is the same in some ways where, yeah, we're supportive of everybody, but support may show up differently from the person sitting to your left to the person sitting to your right. So one of the things you want to think about is, who is this person and what's unique about him or her when you're thinking about how to engage them. But there are things organizations can do in a general way. And I'll give you an example in a minute, but I'm going to stop again and just suggest, if you have an idea that you'd like to share about engagement, I encourage you to make the phone call. 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. And I'll give you a minute to call. Sometimes people need a little space and to think about it. And I encourage you to call, because again, it's interesting for me, and I think it's interesting for our listeners as well. Although I think I have lots to say that's interesting. I hope you do too. But at the same time, it's kind of fun for me if somebody wants to call. So the number one more time, 203-336-9756. Two 336-9756. Okay. So I want to talk about an organization and engagement in a large way. And I think an important issue to many people, if not everybody in our country. And I say our country, I'm saying the United States, but I think it's true around the world, really. And that is that there's a lot of partisanship. I mentioned last week that there's a study out by the Edelman Institute that measures trust in the world, actually, in different workplaces across the world. And trust is at an all-time low. Now, you can ask why, but we've got a call. Hi, this is Chuck. You're on the air. Who am I talking to?
Hi, Chuck. Good morning. My name is George.
Hi, George. How are you?
Hi. I've called you once before, about between 3 and 6 months ago.
Okay.
About an issue I was having, and you were dead on, unfortunately.
Okay.
And I would like, I don't think there is an answer, but I would like to, I'd appreciate your comments after I try to review what's been happening.
Sure.
I have a sister who lives on the West Coast. She's a professional person, and she's in denial about things that have happened when my family was intact, when she was a younger person. And for 40 years, I've been trying to get to know her as a sister, and for 40 years, she's made sure that she's kept her distance from me and made sure that she was always surrounded by other people so that there would never be any personal conversations about family. And I have another sister who is very functional, who lives in another country, and she's had the same problems with my other sister, and has tried her darndest to listen to my dysfunctional sister and at least tried to keep a connection with her. And a few months ago, both my sister from the other country and myself had an email intervention where we both tried to make her realize that she needs professional help to move forward. And there's so many things that she's kept bottled up inside and not come to terms with. And most recently, I found out through my other sister who lives in another country that the sister that's troubled may have been sexually taken advantage of when she was a young girl. But I have no proof of it. So in the meantime, after our intervention on email, my other sister has kept a Facebook page open for my sister, so there is some contact there. And I was so angry about my other sister on the West Coast telling me often about what's such an awful person. Hello?
Yeah, I'm still here. You got cut off for a second.
What an awful person I is, and how dare I say what I did, and they were only my feelings. And you can't deny somebody their feelings, whether you like them or not. And so I shut her off. I said goodbye to her Facebook page and her husband's Facebook page, and she does have contact with me if she wants to use email.
Right.
But I doubt that's going to happen. So my one other sister has some contact, even though it's very sketchy, and I've shut the other sister down completely. And you were right in telling me that the odds of her changing were slim to none.
Right.
But and unless she admits to having a problem and tries to help herself, I'm not willing to go any further with her, because it only hurts me more to keep her as a very superficial friend. I mean, I have acquaintances that I know better than my own sister. And so I wondered if you had any insight for me or a question from me that I could that you could help me with.
Well, let me offer this thought. One is she's coping to a degree. She's got a husband. She is connected to your other sister, even in a minor way. But there's some family connection. But it's just not to you, right?
Yeah, right.
And you're upset that she got upset because, she's your relative. You are trying to care about her. You see her as being a needy person, and she's saying to mind your own business, essentially, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so you are at this point frustrated and wondering if there's anything else you might do.
Yeah.
So I guess part of it is, the only person that you have some control over here that you might change is yourself. I mean, that's where it starts, So one question you got to ask yourself, I guess, is if I want a relationship with her, can I possibly have a relationship with her where I don't see a need to fix her? And I know I'll struggle with the problems that I see when they happen, whether it's something she writes on Facebook, or I might talk to her, something she says, or I hear that she's doing something. And can I live with seeing her be dysfunctional and just love her?
Yeah, honestly, I would have to meet her on her terms.
Right.
And one of my last comments to her on email was, I tolerated living with an alcoholic father, and I had to adjust because I was a minor to live with someone who was so dysfunctional that yet was responsible for me being.
Right.
And I said to her, I refuse to do that again. I am living my terms, and I'm not living with a dysfunctional sister that I have to, again, make adjustments for. And that's my bottom line.
Yep. So then the question I have for you is, if there's nothing you want different, because you've made a decision based on, an experience you had as a young person that was extremely traumatic. I can hear it in your voice and what you just said. And dealing with your sister is too much of a reminder of that.
Yes.
Then unless you get some help and you can see your sister not as your father and not as someone who reminds you of your father, because I'm not sure you can change, but do you see what I'm saying? If you, as long as you see the linkage and it feels like you felt like when you were little and you were dealing with your father, and that's how it feels when you're dealing with your sister. And just like I'm sure you wanted to fix your father, you want to fix your sister, and you can't fix either of them, and that's what drives you kind of nuts, it sounds like to me.
Naturally, being dependent, I always thought it was going to get better somewhere down the road.
Right.
And it took me to become a young adult to realize you can't fix something that doesn't want to be fixed.
Right.
And I can't fix my sister, and again, I'm going to have to adjust to her terms.
Well, maybe one of the ways to think about this is that you can't handle a lot of your sister because it's a struggle for you to not see this other issue being, confounded with this. So, but one thing that
I had no idea what was going on.
But you wouldn't have called me unless you wanted something out of this, right?
Well, I guess something, even if it was just your feedback about how do I, whatever your comments are, I value your comments.
Thank you. So let me finish with this. Let me just say that I don't know that you and your sister can ever change enough. And first of all, whatever happened to your sister, I mean, the damage was done, and she's managed to live her life and somehow survive despite the dysfunction that you see that she's, I'm sure, experienced growing up too. And I'm sure anybody growing up with an alcoholic parent in their home has tremendous issues that never go away. They never really go away. You might manage them, but they don't leave. Now the issue that I'm hearing in you sounds like, to me at least, that there's a piece of you that would love to figure something out. And when we talked last, I said, you're not going to change her, but the person that you might have some influence over, it sounds like to me, is you. And I don't say to you that you should be best friends with her or that you should engage with her a lot, because I don't think you can really handle that, nor do you need that much. But I think what would be nice is to let go of judging her. Stop, when you start to recognize that when you're with her a little bit too long, it's reminding you of things that are really a problem that you never want to experience again, at which point you've got to nicely say, okay, I got to go now, but it's been nice talking to you, and let it go at that, and see in a few more months when you're feeling stronger again that maybe you can reach out another time. Don't look to her to call you, but on the occasion when you feel like, I'd love to talk to her, and I'll talk to her for a little bit, but I'll avoid the kind of subjects that make me crazy when I listen to her talk about them, and just let her know I'm out here and I love her and I hope she loves me, and it's just nice to touch base, and that's it. And maybe you find some peace and balance around this.
I hear you. I understand you loud and clear. Just one other thing that. She's, whether it's intentional or not, again, she's not emotionally connected with how her behavior affects other people, and she will deliberately ignore me when it's something to do with my family. And I feel like, the odd man out. And she's even emailed me and called me dear sibling. And I thought, how low can you get?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I referred to I think she refers to me as like I'm not her girlfriend. I'm not her sister. I'm the other. Like in a checkbox.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she's, like I said, she's called me dear sibling.
Okay. Well,
like, that's a kick in the head.
So you're feeling frustrated by this, and you'd like to feel that you had some confidence that you knew what to do next.
Whenever she would email me or something, my blood pressure goes up, and I say to my wife at the table, I go, God, I was doing just fine, and then she resurfaces, and it takes me another couple of weeks to unwind and stop thinking about her.
So
I don't like being in that state of mind.
Yeah. So it seems like you have a choice to make. You have like three choices. You can continue as is, periodically getting upset because she reaches out and says something that bothers you. That's one choice, and that's the default choice, right? Nothing changes if you just continue on as is.
Yeah. Well, see, the back of my brain, I'm thinking, well, the longer we don't have any verbal contact, maybe it'll bother her more than me, and then she'll rise up.
Yeah, well, that's an unrealistic choice.
Maybe so.
Yeah. So the first choice is the default choice, which is to do nothing. The second choice is to actually just block her email. You can do that. You can block people's emails, so you never know when she writes to you, and so you have no more contact, and it's over. And you just decide.
She has to write me by
mail. I mean, that's one of the things that you can do is to just shut off all communication because you don't handle it well. It's upsetting every time you hear from her. You hope that she has, changes. They're not happening. You recognize that now, and yet you still hope for them unrealistically. And so you have a choice of saying, you know what, and saying to your family, saying, I have a sister, but not really. I have another sister who I am in touch with, and I'll keep in touch with, and that's who my family is really. And my other sister on the West Coast, she's not really. I mean, she's a blood relative, but she's not part of my life anymore. And just shut it off. That's the second choice, and you have a third choice. And I don't know that you can do any of these. You have to. One of the things about the emotion roadmap is you have to decide how you want to feel, and then pick a strategy that you can actually do and are willing to do. And this last one is the ideal strategy, but I don't know that you want to do it or that you're capable of doing it. And that is, you no longer have any expectations of her. You recognize that if you want a relationship with this woman, that she's always going to do something that that is harmful to you, is upsetting to you, but you decide in your own mind and in your own emotional ability to not let it get to you. That it's worth it to you just to have a connection, knowing that she's going to say things that typically would upset you in the past, but you refuse to let them upset you anymore because you want to have a relationship. That's your last choice, your best choice, but the most difficult choice.
Yeah, to me it's godlike. I hate to say it, but it puts as much strain on me as anything because. It's always dealing with something that's a brick wall.
Well, let me suggest to you that you might call me back in 6 months with the same problems if you stay with the default, which is you change nothing. Yeah. And your two other choices, I suggest you think about them. One of them is you block the emails, you shut it off. There is no more contact. You recognize she's out there, but there's no more contact because it's too upsetting and you don't deal with it well, and you don't have to deal with it because you don't put yourself in the situation that you were with your father for all those years when you had to be there because you were a dependent. You're not a dependent of hers. You don't have to be in that situation, and you need to give yourself permission to just shut it off. That's a real choice. Maybe that's your best choice.
Yeah. Again, I'll consider what you said. It's always in the back of my mind, but I just thought some time has gone by, and let me take another look at it and hear what you have to say.
Well, you understand this. You have some control here. You just have to decide if you're willing to exercise it, or you kind of like just being in this morass where you kind of like the complaining part of it, and you sort of have this issue and you like sort of having it out there, and you really don't want to change anything. That's a possible reality too, and that's a therapy issue, by the way, because you grow up with an alcoholic, you have therapy issues. I mean, that's just part of the deal. But like I said, I think you have two other choices. So think about them and maybe pick one of them and see if you can live with that better than what you're living with. That's the default, where she periodically, engages you and upsets you. So.
Yeah, well, you're right on, and I thank you for your time, and I appreciate talking with you.
It's been my pleasure. Thanks for the call, and I hope it helps.
Thanks a lot, Chuck.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
take care. Bye-bye now. Okay, well, we had two interesting calls today. I'll tell you a little bit about what I was going to talk about in terms of an organizational issue. So in politics today, and as I started to say around the world, there's a lot of partisanship. One party versus another. People not talking to one another. People hating the other side of an issue. If you're left, then you only want to talk to people on the left. If you're right, you only want to talk to people on the right. If you're moderate, you can't talk to anybody. Have you felt that? I mean, I felt it, and I suspect many of you have as well. So there's this group out there called No Labels. Now, you may have heard me talk about them. You may have stumbled across them on your own. Now, this group was devoted to the idea that we should have bipartisanship in our country, in a political theater. We should have people on the left and on the right working together to do what's right for the country, not worry about party politics and worry about country. What comes first for the country? What do we need to do for our country? What's in our best interest for the people here? For all the people, rich, poor, everybody in between. What's in the best interest of everybody? How do we work together? So No Labels comes out with this idea, and people look at, hey, I like the idea of no labels. And personally, I do. I'm not particularly a fan of either the Republican and Democratic national parties. I do like individuals in both parties, but I don't like the overall party. The narrative is like you can't vote for something if it's going to make the other party look good. I mean, I hate that. But anyway, the concept that No Labels promotes is this: let's not be focused on labels. Let's focus on getting things done. Let's be statesman-like and not politician-like. And so No Labels try to generate some interest in this among people in the Congress and Senate and with presidential candidates. In fact, they actually helped to create a group in the Congress that is called the Problem Solvers Caucus. That is a group of members, 23 Democrats, 23 Republicans, I think, somewhere around those numbers, who have signed a pledge, who have all agreed that if 70% of those group of people agree that legislation is worth voting for, they will vote for it. And they will ignore what their party says to do, and they will vote for it. Because it's again, these people have decided, let's do what's in the interest of the country, not in the interest of our party. Now, they run some risk of not being supported by their parties later on when re-election comes up, if they don't vote the party line every time. But anyway, this group is working hard to make this happen. And there's a whole bunch of people that want to support it. I'm one of them. And they have thousands across all 50 states that are interested in being part of this No Labels group. So we all joined No Labels. And all these people that are interested. And some of us went down to Washington, D.C. in March for a meeting where we heard from people in the Problem Solvers Caucus and some congressmen and some senators. A couple of senators that I think are willing to be in a group that is bipartisan, and Joe Manchin from West Virginia and Susan Collins, Republican. Joe is a Democrat. Susan Collins from Maine. Lovely people who want to do what's right for the country. Aren't so worried about party. But the point I'm making is that all these members who are part of this national organization are looking to be engaged by No Labels to help to generate support for different legislation to write or call the president. For instance, there's a healthcare proposal that the Problem Solvers Group worked on independently. They came together. It's one of the considerations for healthcare going forward. I know Bernie Sanders has a proposal out today on Medicare for everybody. I know I know there's a couple of senators who are interested. Lindsey Graham and Patty Murray from Louisiana, Lindsey from South Carolina. There's some stuff happening. So I'm thinking No Labels should take a position on a bipartisan group and help to drive support by writing some talking points and a note to engage its members to write to their congressmen and women and senators and to the president to support this. And they haven't figured that part out yet. And I'll tell you more about it next time I'm on the radio, because I know there's a lot of people that want to be engaged in helping our country to do the right thing, to grow again, and to work together again, and to collaborate, and to stop this hateful chatter where people just are shouting at each other. And with that, I'll leave you and say, have a great rest of your day. And I'll be back on the first and second Wednesdays of each month at WPKN 89.5 FM, listener-supported radio. And thank you for your support. And also, I want to say a special note of thanks to all our Latino listeners out there as we begin the celebration of Hispanic Heritage Month. Take care, everybody. I wish you all the best. And thanks so much for listening. It's such a pleasure to have people who tune in and listen. You're listening to Chuck Wolf, and this has been the Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.